I've never paid 1 cent for advertising, and I grew to 75,000. The business I'm building now is much more personal. It's much more coming from heart rather than mind, and it's more vulnerable.
I'm still curious that you have so many episodes and haven't launched. So when do you want to launch? Hi, and welcome to a new episode of my podcast debut, where I interview people like Ra, who are in the process of launching their podcast, and hopefully that inspires you also to start your podcast. And Ra, I'd love to ask you first, what is your podcast about?
Right. Thank you for the question. Thank you for having me here. My podcast is called the New Earth Love Podcast. And it's me talking with women most of the time. I had also 2 men already interviewed, but 90% of the time women, to build more trust and understanding between the genders. So there's different ways our brains work and the way we see the world, and it's really amazing to just have conscious communication and conversation about the differences, and building more love and peace in the world, hopefully through that.
Oh, that's beautiful, and I love the concept also of this. Um, so I would love to ask you. You've started recording already, right?
Yes, that's right.
How many episodes?
Mm. Well, I haven't released any, but recorded around 18, 17,
18.
18. I haven't
Okay, interesting.
trimmed them and made them all ready, but I have at least material for quite a few.
Okay, thank you, Ra. What haven't you released already? I mean, it's pretty rare to record that many
Yeah, I'm
front and
aware.
not release.
So a friend of mine, when I started it, said I encourage you to not launch it straight away because it's gonna be pressure to deliver. And I was at that moment letting go of my home in Tenerife in Spain and starting to prepare for long-term travel and all that. So I didn't want to overwhelm myself. That's basically how it started. And then there was also right now I'm in the moment where I really fully step into my power with my coaching business. I've completed the course. And so I want to use that momentum basically to release it. So I was waiting for that moment. So for the last more than 3 months, I've been developing my program. Like the beta version of my program has been rolling, and now it's completed. So it's the perfect moment to step out and to be more visible and engage with people. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
amazing.
mainly the
Thank you.
reason.
And what's your program about?
So I'm a relationship coach for men, specifically men who are challenged with commitment. So, and who also are not happy with casual dating anymore. So basically men who want to embody freedom within relationships. So I help them with boundaries. That's the name of my course, is Boundary Breakthrough Journey, helping men to find freedom, personal freedom, and keeping their center within a committed relationship through boundaries, like understanding what your boundaries are, embodying them in a confident way, and then also the ways how to communicate that.
Thank you, Rod. That's beautiful. And I feel that's an important journey for, I mean, I'm personally a man in a committed relationship, so it definitely speaks to me. Thank you. And so, I'm interested. So you have quite a clear strategy of your launch with your program and having the podcast supporting that. So I'd love to ask you, what is the launch strategy of your podcast and, sorry, of your program, and how is the podcast supporting that?
Well, uh, now you're asking me stuff. So I wish I would have like a super clear masculine, let's say, one point after the other strategy. So the podcast is gonna promote obviously the people who are coming, and then I hope that they are so showing other people in their network what we recorded. And my socials are also going to be linked, obviously, because it's promoted on my YouTube and on my Instagram. What is it? Spotify? Yeah. And yeah, my launch strategy, I'm just like expanding. Like I'm tapping into LinkedIn and Instagram and just like looking basically where's the best moment to. So it's really like an experimentation. It's more like reaching out on all the social platforms and see like where there's the most resonance, because I know who my clients are and that I can help them. But so far, I'm only on Instagram with the handle that is also here. But it's a very small audience so far, and I have also not been pushing it because I've been focusing on actually serving the clients I have and building the program. So it's a work in progress, and it's the podcast. I haven't started it actually with the idea to promote my business. That was not the idea. It was just like me talking to my best friend Fari, and we had like always the deepest conversations, and I would take like an hour or so. And on some point, we were like, yeah, why not just recording that and let other people listen to it? This is how it started. And then the topic, or like let's say the niche, emerged from there. And I mean, I'm very passionate about relationships between men and women specifically, as a heterosexual man. So, and that kind of plays into that naturally. So it just kind of happened. It was not that I had a strategy of like, yeah, I'm gonna do that podcast to promote my business. That was not how I started.
Okay. So you started recording because you had those great conversation and thought, might as well record them.
It
So
happened
are
very
those
naturally.
episodes with always that person?
Half, I would say.
Oh,
Quite a few. Like in the beginning, I did all the episodes with Fari, and then on some point, especially when I started traveling and meeting, for example, like I can already spoil like what's going to come out in the next couple of months. So I've been interviewing a feminine radiance coach. I've been talking to a menstrual cycle mentor, a tantra teacher, dark feminine coach, like shadow worker, and different other people who have been there. So it's a really curious mix, and yeah, but quite a few episodes are with Fari, who is not a woman's coach. She's organizing conscious festivals, but we're just good friends and have amazing conversations. That's why
amazing.
she's on the show.
Amazing. Did you film them on video too?
Yeah, all the episodes are either I have these little mics. If I'm in person with someone, I'm just putting my tripod, my phone, or similar like we do it now. Just yeah, that one. Or I do it on Zoom with this camera and video setup.
Nice. Yeah, it looks good, man. It looks good. Yeah, I mean, I love that. Yeah, I'm still curious that you have so many episodes and haven't launched. So when do you want to launch?
Beginning of next month, which will be what do we have now?
Nice.
February, right? So 1st of March. Yeah, and the next time I'm doing my 3-month course that I just told you about, or I think I told you a little bit about it. The Boundary Breakthrough Journey is gonna be the next one in 1st of April we start.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Ra. And also thank you to everyone watching this episode. And I mean, first, I love that what you said about how you start the podcast. Often, how people start is they have really good conversation and they thought, whoa, we
Mm-hmm.
should have recorded that. That could be a podcast. And I love that you actually took action on this and started recording. So if you're watching this, that's always a good way to start, is to feel I have those amazing conversations. Let's record them. Ideally, let's also put a camera there so it's also on video and we can post on YouTube. And then post, like, then you have content even if you're not sure exactly when you post and for what. So I love that you've been doing that. That I think is a really good idea. And then I would say it's in if because you did that, it's perfect. But then, of course, when people ask me and they want to start a podcast in general, I recommend kind of getting launched as soon as possible, because then you get that feedback loop. You get
Mm.
you understand what you like. You can adjust. You can start promoting. I'm I'm not a fan of doing it as a strategy. I really like the lean way and get started and adjust as you go, because the podcast is not like a book, right? Like a book, the first chapters need to be really good and in line with the whole book. But with the podcast, it's actually fine if the beginning of the podcast was a little bit different, a little bit more clunky, and by episode 20,
Mm.
you improve this and that.
Yeah, I definitely need to launch it. At some
Yeah.
point, it's getting ridiculous because I did an episode yesterday with my current partner, And the
Yeah.
moment it's gonna be released, I might not even be with her anymore. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
there's an energetic of timing actually, where actually with my other podcast, the Light Leaders, I don't even really have a set day, because once I record, I kind of want the podcast out fairly
right.
quickly, because I feel there's an energy and a timing to the podcast that a few months later might not be relevant, may not be relevant for
Hmm.
my guests too, and I rely quite a bit on cross promotions and collaboration. So when there's that excitement, I kind of want to build off of that. But
Mm,
that's a
that
really
makes
good
a lot of sense.
conversation, yeah, to have together for the people to watch also. And by the way, if you're watching this, thank you for being here. And if you're also considering starting your own podcast, you're in the process, or you're just not sure, come on the show and let's talk about it and just have a good conversation. You can find in the description the links to get started with it. Um, Ra, back to your podcast. What are your goals with it?
Well, inspiring people mainly, engaging in conversations, like inspiring, hopefully, through the conversations I have with different women and getting inspired by the feedback. So it's really my biggest motivation is giving a stage. So I told you I have another YouTube channel for a while, which is about a completely different topic. It's a DIY jewelry channel. So when I have my podcast ready to be released, I will promote it also there. So my hope, if the universe wants that for this work that I'm doing, is that there's quite a few people who are coming there like from the start and engage, and then also the women I have there, they get some traffic and just like networking. So it's really all about giving a stage to different people who come, and obviously also to myself, and just having inspiring conversations. So that's the main idea.
Amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. So learning, being inspired, inspiring others, networking, and getting more views, more reach also. Do you have any specific goals? Like some people have a number of views, a number of subscribers, some people have a number of clients or monetization.
Hmm. Right. Well, it's an interesting question. I do not. I'm open to whatever wants to happen. Like it's the third YouTube channel I'm starting. The first one was completely unsuccessful. I used to be a math teacher, and and I did weekly videos about like mathematical topics, but I had no idea about search engine optimization and all that stuff. So no one was watching my content, and I was very frustrated. Then I learned about SEO. And on this, it's about macrame Anleitung. If you want to look it up, it's a German in German language tutorial channel for DIY jewelry. And by now I have 75,000 subscribers there. So I'm actually just really curious how many are inspired to come with me on my journey. Like because I've been almost not posting anything there. Like I'm not passionate so much anymore about the macrame. So I haven't been really there or answering any comments and stuff. And still people are subscribing and commenting and watching the videos. And so it's really just like giving it up to the universe, and like a number that is coming now. Yeah, like 10,000 would be a cool number. But I know also that it doesn't really matter. Like for actual clients who might come out of it, or like I'm really I'm really not obsessed about this like tangible numbers anymore. So to be
Hmm.
honest, I'm just really open. And a good friend of mine, he actually started a YouTube channel without telling anybody. I'm the only one he told about it. And it's just him talking to the camera about whatever comes to him without any strategy, without any yeah, goal with it other than just like using it as a tool for creative expression for himself. Like others take a canvas and start painting a picture. He
Yeah.
uses that medium of YouTube to just express himself. And I find that really inspiring. And that's kind of, yeah, I felt very called to do this. and it feels really natural. Like when I'm in conversation with different people on the podcast, it just feels really aligned with me to do that, and I'm just curious what is gonna be the feedback.
Mm.
So specific goal would be curiosity and just like play, mainly play.
Playing, yeah, play. Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Ra. And that's a really good reason. That's a really good reason where you can always choose between sometimes more measurable goals or things you want out of it, which in my experience can be really good for also people's longevity doing it, because if it brings client and if you get 10,000 views per videos, obviously a little bit easier to prioritize the podcast than when people feel they don't have the views or the or clients, and then sometimes that's why a lot of podcasts actually stop. I think 90% before episode 10 actually. But on the other hand, what works on YouTube is authenticity, and people love
Mhm.
also that you come there and just do what you love, because there's that quote: "Don't ask what the world needs, do what lights you up," because what the world needs is people doing what lights them up.
Right, that's
And
very
people
cool.
love that. Yeah. So it is often an interesting mix where sometimes people just start a channel was like, I don't really care, I'm just going to talk about what I want to talk, and I'm not going to think about the thumbnail and the title, and they do really well because of that and because it's refreshing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also I'm not like it's very raw, the podcast. So it's just like I cut the end and the beginning to just yeah trim it a little bit, but in between there is no cuts. Like I used to be obsessed with cutting and having the perfect voiceover and perfect footage and whatever, and I'm just like, okay, I just want to like get the information out there. And of course this mic is much better than these like clip mics that you can put on the
Mm.
phone, but still people understand what we are talking about, and that's
Yeah.
that's what matters. It doesn't have to be like crisp HD audio all the time. So um yeah, I'm just very open to play, and if it wants to evolve, if it becomes bigger, then on some point I'm open to whatever wants to come to me, having a whole recording studio somewhere with a team who takes care of the technical part. So I'm open to expand, right? And right now it's just all about like being raw and being authentic, what you said yourself.
I love that. Thank you, Ra. And that's part of the foundations. To
Hmm.
me, yeah, that rawness and authenticity, and also maybe some clarity around who you're talking to, but really the core of the content is the foundation. And then the studio is the cherry on the cake, let's say. So I love your approach, which is building first from that strong base, and then as you're bigger, you can get the studio, you can get the more fancy stuff. Because having a studio won't make your podcast big. I know I used to record in studios, and just having the studio is like doesn't create the success. But adding the studio once you already have that strong foundation obviously makes sense, and that's why most people look at top podcasts, and many of them they're in studios, but they're not successful because they're in studios. They're successful
Yeah,
because the
it's very good.
content. And then when you have a million views for each episode, like Diary of a CEO, of course it makes sense to upgrade the production and get all the top equipments and a whole team and all these things. So yeah, I'd love to ask you, Rad, do you have any questions also?
Questions, yeah. Well, the only way to ask for engagement that I do so far, that I implemented on some point in my podcast, is just like whenever I remember in between to say like, by the way, guys, this is like a social media, so you can very much engage with us. Give this a thumbs up or heart or whatever's available here to help the algorithm. Share it with someone, and subscribe if you want to be informed about future episodes, and like comment like if you have any question or any contribution about the conversation we're having. So, and I do that always in the end, and sometimes if I remember, I do it in between. Mm, but that's pretty much all I know about encouraging people to engage. And if there's anything that you can give me as input there, like that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Because I want
I
to
totally
engage. I want to actually have conversation with people. That's what I'm aiming for.
Thank you. I'm totally going to do that. But in the first place, I'm going to say my other channel has 3.7 thousand subscribers, which I'm proud of and happy about with my podcast. And you have a YouTube channel with 75,000 subscribers. So actually, I would start with asking you, like, how did you grow that channel that much?
Well, a lot of SEO optimization. So even the name, like I was obsessed with SEO. So, and it was a niche where there was. Do you know a little bit about SEO? Just like
In
maybe I give like a
general,
very
but were you doing it specifically for YouTube, like keywords from
yeah
YouTube?
yeah. So I used the Google Keyword Planner basically, and that is also connected with YouTube.
Okay,
So
and
for
so
everybody who
just
has
for context, maybe
yeah
you're gonna do that,
yeah
but search
I
engine
was
optimization. Okay,
yeah, I was
yeah,
about to explain. So, what you want in general, if you're aiming to naturally grow, like there's also a way to like pay ads and stuff. I have no idea about that. I've never paid 1 cent for advertising, and I grew to 75,000. So the knowledge I give you is only about organic growth. Basically, check different keyword planner tools. So there's a Google Keyword Planner, and there's other tools for that, and play around with it which keywords, which means like which phrases or words have a high volume of search and a small competition. That's what you want. You want the intersection of high search volume and low competition. Otherwise, if there's a lot of competition on a word that is like really big, for example, yoga, right? If you want to do like a new yoga channel, it can be quite challenging because the niche is very much taken. And at the time when I was starting my channel, which was 2009, if I'm correct, beginning of 2019, there was just not one German speaking YouTube channel focusing only on macrame jewelry. It didn't exist. And at the same time, there was a high volume, like many people wanting to learn how to do macrame. So it was I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm a teacher already. I'm good at explaining stuff and I love macrame, so why not trying it out? And from the first day I had like naturally people coming there and watching that. And that was kind of lucky plus strategy. So lucky that I had a good idea where I've also had expertise, and then combining that with the knowledge that I had about yeah. And then it's a lot about also listening to your audience, you know, like I figured out after like a couple of thousand subscribers, you see like in the analytics who is actually listening to your stuff or watching it. So I saw that like 90% of my viewers are female. And so I focused on jewelry for women. Like a bracelet for men wouldn't like sell as much. So I really analyzed like which videos are like I have different designs obviously that I played around with, just like from the inspiration that came. And then I tried to focus on the ones that the people who came to me liked the most, so then give them more of what they like already. Yeah.
This is really interesting, and thank you for sharing your knowledge on that. And even the conversation on doing what people like is an interesting one because, for example, with my other channel, I know when I do content on being a raw vegan, for example, or a fruitarian, it gets a lot more views. So I tend to do also more of that, but then it's always that balance between I don't want to be I want to do what I love also. I don't want to be a slave to the views and do something just because it gets views. So where do we find that balance? I don't really know, but that's always a good question for a creator that can sometimes be trapped in its own success.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also what you said, right? Like once you have feedback and people say, "Ah, can't you like make an episode on that?" And then I might feel invited and inspired to do that. And so far, all the content is coming just like from what comes in the morning as an inspiration or through a natural conversation with someone. So it's really about time to release this podcast. It
Mm,
really is.
mm. Thank you. I'd love to keep picking your brain a little bit. Actually, we're reversing it. Like I'm asking you for like mentoring on it because with this channel, it's called the Conscious Podcast Lab. Actually, my intention is also to be more niche and specific and to play the game of searches because my other podcast, The Light Leaders, is more broad. And I thought, okay, now that I'm coaching people on podcasting, I want people to search things and find my videos as answer to that, including potentially the way I title even this podcast, which are conversations, but that's speak to a specific niche. So it's in English, and podcasting and YouTube channels. There's obviously some competition. So would you go extra niche with the words and look at extra niche questions on the Google keyword that don't have that have enough volume and not too much competition?
Mm, there's so many things to SEO. I actually do even coach people in it, like YouTube SEO, because it's like I can't expand it in 5 minutes. It's like from how does the thumbnail look to how does the video file name is consistent with the name of the title of the video you give it. How is your video description? Is that aligned with because YouTube automatically analyzes the voiceover, so there's automatically generated subtitles, and obviously the algorithm checks that the subtitles of the video are in coherence with what you text below, so that you're not misleading people. So yeah, I don't know about your specific niche. I haven't done the research on it. So check your competition, I would say. Is there anybody doing the same thing that you're already doing? That's always important. If you have a small pond, then you are automatically the big fish if there's no one else doing what you're doing. And back in the day when I chose to do my macrame channel, of course, there's so much more people speaking English and Spanish, but there was already quite some channels in these languages. And in German, there was none. So I was like, okay, German speaking people are quite a few. So I'm just gonna focus on them. Um, so yeah, it can be many things. Yeah. If you
Thank
want, we
you.
can
Yeah,
schedule a coaching session on that,
yeah.
and we dive deeper.
It, it could be. I mean, it's always a really interesting one also between niching down versus also doing what you're passionate about, especially if you're multi-passionate. And that's a conversation I have all the time when I coach people on podcasting. It's because on one hand, there is all these pros of niching down, right? There are all these pros of, okay, you, from a business point of view, you take this this language, this niche, and you go into it, and it's much easier to get the views. And at the same time, when you start a podcast, in general, something that's dear to your heart, and that's also something you want to do in the long term. So, for example, with your YouTube channel, the fact that it's so niched helped it grow. So it's really good for the business. But now you grew out of it. You're tired of doing it, and you want to do it in English. So it's harder also to use that versus something that is not as niched and not as strategic. So where you don't grow as fast, but that you can do for much longer. So for example, with my other podcast, The Light Leaders, I kept it quite wide. I did it in English. I'm sure if I started something more niche in French, I would have grown much faster. But then after a few years, I wouldn't want to do it anymore. So it's always
I
playing
get
that
it.
game where if I don't grow, I don't really want to do it too much. But then if I grow a lot, but it's not something I'm passionate about in 6 months, then I'm going to start something new. And then I don't get the compound of that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have like a whole funnel attached also to what you do, and it makes also sense to invest in ads. Again, I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could connect you with people who are.
Mm.
But yeah, that's also another way to grow. Like to say people put something in the YouTube search, and then there's obviously like the ones with the most views and the nicest thumbnails or whatever that people keep clicking. And sometimes you pop up just because you paid for it. So that could
Mm.
be a nice way to start if consistent with what you do, and you have a strategy behind it, that makes a lot of sense also to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's something I've been thinking about too. Obviously, so yeah, and YouTube, then there's the whole thumbnail and title and hook and all this. We won't go too deep into that, but also because you asked for the strategy. Well, for you, yeah, you already have the YouTube channel in German, so you could totally obviously put a video there talking about your new channel, right? And the people who want to join, they join. But in
Can
that,
I pick your
yeah,
brain? Would you do that in
yeah.
English because the other channel is gonna be only in English, or would you do it in both languages, or what would
No,
be
so
your
your
suggestion
channel's in
there?
German,
Yeah.
so I would do it in German. Because I think
Hmm.
consistency on the channel is important. That's also why, in your case, wouldn't want to reuse the same channel. Some people, they
Hmm.
they started in fitness and they have 50,000 subscribers, and then they change to building a business, but they keep using this. Some people might want to keep using the same channel because they think people like them and many of them are going to be on the journey. But if it's too different, obviously it's good to have two channels. But then on your channel in German, I would do it in German and just say that it's in English.
Right. I mean, I can do an additional, like maybe I do at the end of the video that I do it in English, and then I kind of put it as an image in the beginning, like English from minute 15 or something like that.
Mm. But yeah, I mean, what I would do is I would try to take those subscribers along on the journey. So if you go like and speak in English and be like, hey, I have this new channel, it's totally different. You want to join me there? You might have some people who join, but what I would do is try to tie it somehow. So for example, those people, depending if you put your face already a lot, they might be following also because they like you and they know you and they want to know what you've been up to. So you could do a video which is like the title then it's in German and the title is more something like why I haven't posted here in a year. And then all these people who
Yeah.
like the channel, they want to know and they're going to watch. And then the first couple of minutes is in German, a live update, they're connected to you, and they understand, and then you explain them also why you're so passionate about what you do now and why you do it in English, and then you
Mm.
really increase the
Yeah.
chances of those people wanting to follow you on that new journey. Yeah, so you brand it for that channel, you create that video for that channel, but taking you on the journey to the new channel for the people who want that.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Like speaking to the ones who are there and picking them up where they are.
Yeah, 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 really creating a video for them, take them from
Yeah, and they
that
have been
place
so
to the one.
supportive. I feel really guilty also that I haven't been answering comments in a long time. Like most of them are not actually questions, they are just like cheering. Like I have uh like the most people have some kind of hate comments if it's like more personal content, but because the topic I speak about is like completely non-personal, it's just like instructions for something else. There's like 99% thumbs up, you know, it's like incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's actually unrealistic even for most topics. And obviously the business I'm building now is much more personal, it's much more coming from heart rather than mind, and it's more vulnerable. I think this is also why it took me so long to actually step in and position myself, because it's like I can't hide or I don't want to hide anymore behind a topic, you know, that might be mathematics, that might be macrame or whatever. It's just like, okay, I'm actually showing up as a relationship coach, sharing also about my own experience and my own trauma and stuff. So that's the most vulnerable it can get from the other side of just like talking about like like I would say random topics that have nothing to do with me as a person, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and congratulations, it requires courage to do that. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, still building up momentum. And I love that you gently kicking my butt here when you were asking
Mm,
like when is your podcast gonna be released. You asked that even before we jumped on this call, so it's like okay, I need an answer here, and it's like okay, it's the 17th of February right now, so in about 2 weeks.
amazing.
Less than 2 weeks, 10
Do it.
days, 11 days.
Congratulations. Cool. Yeah, let's do it. Um, yeah, also to answer you on the for the promotion of podcasting, I really like leveraging Instagram and collaborations, especially if my guest has a big following, because when I have a guest with 100,000 subscribers and I do clips, automatically it creates a lot of awareness for the podcast, and it's just good to
Mm,
get the brand and the reach out. So that's always a really good strategy. That's why I like using Riverside, because it creates clips automatically, and then I have clips for um, social media also. I'd love to ask you, how do you want to launch?
how? Well, I have no idea, to be honest. Just doing it, just uploading stuff and making it available and then telling people about it. Do you have any suggestions there?
I mean, that's pretty much it. But then, yeah, suggestion. I like to launch with two episodes. One is a typical episode of what I'll be doing, and another one is an intro. And at the same time, like these people who already want to hear about the podcast, they'll listen to the intro first, and then they'll listen to your first episode right after if they want. And then people who, let's say, see your first episode because you had a guest they like, then they can always check the intro. So I like to launch with these two. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely leveraging the people that you know around you, that you feel could give a little boost, and just asking them to support at the start is always a good one. And then, of course, you know the YouTube strategies, so that's um, always really good. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
guess
wouldn't
like
overthink it,
announcing.
but
I
doing
was I
this
was
little bit.
thinking like should I like announce before that I'm gonna do it? It's like it's a lot of chaos still in my head. Like what comes first, you know? Like for me to take action, it sometimes really needs this
Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
structure. Like yeah. I still need to figure that out.
yeah. What I usually do is, yeah, just ask a few friends to support when you launch. I don't recommend doing something too complicated, especially in your case, you want to launch, right? So just, I would say, have an intro and one episode ready, and and prepare the launch. Have a few, like, uh, usually I recommend three Instagram posts when you launch. One is the logo and that people can share with the links, and one is a clip from episode one is a clip from episode two, and then that's like a good enough, like that's a good launch, and but then if, because with podcasting, it's like every episode is a launch, every episode is steering to a new direction, opening up to new audiences. So that's how I think about it. So that's why, let's leverage the launch for sure, but not overthink it. That's how I think about it. Yeah, thanks,
Hmm.
Ra. It's been a really good conversation. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, 38 minutes in, I'd love to ask you, was this valuable?
Yes, definitely. Like what I'm let me see what I'm taking. Yeah, just doing it and like once people engage, like work with what's coming back instead of like overthinking and over planning. And I guess there was also a bit of fear in me about like not being able to consistently deliver. Because with the macrame in the beginning, it was really coming naturally. And then on some point, I felt really stressed that I committed to a weekly video. And it was a lot of work, like coming up with inspiration for design, recording it, cutting it, promoting it, and all that. So there's a fear in me around that for sure that I want to look at and just like, yeah, start somewhere and see what people bring back into the space and then use it as a feedback loop. So that's the first thing that's coming. Then the second thing, like to have an intro, and I think actually 2 episodes I'm gonna put for the launch. So 2 episodes and an intro. Um, yeah, and then like when I'm promoting it on my other channel, like just yeah, talking to the people who are there, like why it took me so long to be here and what I'm doing instead. Mm, Yeah, and also just like having a conversation about it and knowing that it's gonna be online today or tomorrow or whatever you gonna release it. It's also
In
making it more
45
real for
minutes.
me in 45 minutes. So it's like, wow, it's real, it's happening. I'm actually committed to it. So there's part of me is excited, and another part has fear, like, oh my God, do I get all these things done? You know, like being a digital nomad, moving between spaces and just moved into this new hotel and like being bothered by the light and, and stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, but I will do it. And I'm curious about what's coming back. And it's, yeah, you can only learn swimming when you jump into the water, right? That's what I tell men usually about relationships. Like if you want to become expert on relationships and you're just single and try to become an expert, that's not really gonna work. So mm, same advice to myself, like just doing it and taking it while the ship is while the ship is flying, while the plane is flying, keep building it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ra. That's powerful, and it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for everyone
Hmm.
still watching here. If you learned something from this episode, please let us know in the comment. I read them all, reply to them all. If you have any questions, also there. And if you want to support, you can like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much, Ra, also for joining this. And yeah, much love to everyone. If you want to come on the show again, talk about your podcast, check in the description. Much love.